That's another thing back to, again, sort of came from the conversation about what do I do for last minute things. It's where communication is so important. It depends on the people you're dealing with, whether it's a label person who's very fluent in producing music or an artist who also produces it. If they know the language, it's also nice to say, hey, you wanted the vocal louder, but what I did instead is I carved out some space for it and I turned up the doubles in chorus 2. And then they go, ooh, I like that. They can listen to it. They can hear it. They can decide if that's the thing. Or, I think sometimes that stuff can be really good too. And again, the difference between being a mixer, being a producer, where you are in the collaborative process changes some of this stuff.
Yes.
But I definitely find that the number one advice is for last minute things is figure out how to get it done, because then you'll get hired forever. And 2, communication. And like you said, working on instinct is really, really important, but it also takes time to develop instincts. And part of the way you develop instincts is get some last minute shit and just fucking figure out how to do it. And those skills are really important. I mean, I've told this story before, but one of the first things I worked on in the One Direction camp, where I did the song Best Song Ever, which is the first single, was the first thing I did from them from this album. And then I got basically a call with a 24-hour turnaround to do another full production. And I just said yes, because it was a great opportunity and they were a huge band and I was just starting out as a producer and I'd already done a great thing for this A&R for Tyler, my good buddy. And he just said, I got this much time. Can you do it? And I said, yes. And I just figured it out and it was wild. And I just stayed at the studio till 8 a.m. and you just figured it out because I know I can do it, or at least I think I can do it. And once you figure out how to have that skill set of working under pressure and force yourself into those situations, it's surprising how good a work you can do. And then people will hire you forever. So figuring it out is the number one piece of advice.
It's honestly, it's my favorite part of it. I like to figure out my days to be flexible for those things, right? Kind of lining up the calendar with understanding people's deadlines and prioritizing the fast deadline. That energy gets me going, right? And also we know it's coming out. Like if it's a fast deadline, it's being released, the stakes are high. Everyone's there. Like you said, everyone else is stressed. So you could be the calm one in the room and be like, nah, this is tight. Like it's feeling really good. And then you'll see them respond back in the text thread. Yeah, actually it really is feeling good. It's like, it's really close. You can kind of direct the conversation towards, nah, we're getting somewhere, or we're there already. Or if something's going on too long, you're like, maybe we were there a bit ago. And this is a skill of communication that one has to learn. And just a quick like anecdotal story that, I really like your One Direction story. I had a very similar one when I had my car accident. I guess it was three years ago now, when I was laying on the couch, like on pain meds, so fucked up. And, I got called by an A&R friend, Josh Berkman, I've been working with for a while, like needed a Nicki Minaj song mix, like the night that she was already live on Apple Music for that Queen drop. She's on the radio show promoting the drop of her album in 3 hours. And I'm mixing a song on pain medication and having the time of my life. Like I was watching Downton Abbey, got the call, and instead of watching Downton Abbey, I was just like, I'm going to go mix this Nicki Minaj record. Nicki liked the first pass so much, they sent me 2 more to do to see if I can cram 2 more before the 3-hour drop from then. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And that's one of the most exciting nights of mixing in my life. Wound up getting 2 on the album and then 1 on the deluxe. So all 3 got used, only 2 made the deadline, but like 3 hours, 2 songs, Nicki Minaj, like that's high stakes, high energy. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life.
And by the way, the facts of that story is also that you only got 2 out of 3. But that's what happens. You got to understand that deadlines, things are imperfect, and you got to go with that energy. You got to go, and that's part of the communication too. You say, we've got 3 hours. I'm going to spend the most time on the vocal. We're not going to quite have as much time as I want, but I'm going to do the best job I can possibly do in these 3 hours and send it back to you. I mean, again, depending on the relationship that you have, and presumably people who are calling you last minute already know what you do and already have some understanding and some trust, and you have a relationship, so you have an understanding of how to communicate with them. But being able to say, all right, here's how I see it. I'm ready to do it. This is going to be great. Here's where it's going to be tough. We might compromise a little bit here, but we're going to get it quickly. Then you can get me notes. I'll get to, whatever it is. Like the more you can say, here's how it's going to go. You've hired me. I'm now in charge of this finishing, and here's how we're going to do it. Makes people feel much
That's
better.
a good thing to just restate, which is that the times that this circumstance comes up, the times that people are saying, can you do this now, are normally going to come from people you have a close relationship with and already understand the communication, already understand your relationship and what you're capable of. So all that we said in the last 10 minutes about this question really comes to the fact that, oh, that's going to probably be sorted in your friendship, your long-term working relationship for these things that just happen organically most of the time. Otherwise, it's going to be a referral from one of those people with trust that it's going to work, and you'll then develop a new form of communication with those people, and then you just kind of have this endless cycle of people referring to you that they know you're capable of this, and it's just kind of ongoing, and that's how you get reliable and professional and understood as a finisher in this world.
I don't know if I want to launch into this long philosophical thing that I'm thinking in my head right now, but maybe a short version of it, which is the thing that marks professionals / adults, whether it's in our profession or maybe anything, or maybe just in life, is the ability to take responsibility for things. So when somebody calls you and says, I need you to help me with X, and you go, I got this. Here's how we're going to do it. Tell me what you need. Here's what I'm thinking. You know, you just take on the responsibility as the person who knows what they're doing. That is really what the role is. I mean, all of the making the transient sound good on the snare drum, those things are really important, obviously, but everybody can figure those out much more quickly. The thing that is the biggest challenge in the long term is figuring out how to be the adult, the responsible person that people will call because they trust you. I mean, that's really the skill. Taking responsibility for the project, taking emotional responsibility for a whole string of people that have been stressed out getting to this point, and then it's a deadline, and you just go, "Hey, I got this." Like, by the way, even if you don't exactly, like, that's your role is to sometimes you're faking it till you make it. That's what I did with the Tyler being One Direction. He's like, "You got 24 hours." I was like, "Cool, yeah, I got it." I figured it out.
One of the conversations dinners we had up here when we were doing them as a group, I think it was Eric Madrid that stated that, which was like, we're being hired for our confidence. And I had to push back a little bit and be like, well, I don't feel that confident. But then we kind of like all distilled it around the room, which is what the conversation is all about. You're kind of hired to pretend as if you have confidence in this record, because you won't always have it, but you have to have it all the time, because that's what people are paying for you, for confidence in saying two things. One, this is tight and this is done. Like, someone has to say it's done. It's a consensus, right? Like, I'm very actually on this tip of what it means to have consensus amongst a group to figure out really hard problems, right? Like, there's a reason there's 4 umpires or referees on a field or a court of some sort. And it's the reason why you don't call your own lines in tennis. And, you have to have some sort of consensus going on amongst these important decisions. And at the end of the day, the team is collaborating with notes, with the A&Rs, the managers, and making sure that it's coming together. But one person really is like, this is done. And a lot of the times we do that and assert ourselves as mixers or producer finishers that are also mixing, or producers before it gets mixed. Oh, it's now ready to be mixed. Oh, all these problems that you're giving me are mix notes. It's now time to send it up the chain to so-and-so who's going to be doing this. I know they're capable of this. There's all these marks along the road. And that's the only way that we can actually come to a consensus that this is it. This is the one. This is the version. Sometimes that's the president of the label. If they're prioritizing an artist and they're growing through this, that with the new artists, let's say, like say Ron Perry, for example, with the Kid Leroy, and really like starting in on, okay, the world is about to hear this song on the radio. I'm going to jump in on this song now in the mix process and give my 2 cents. I experienced that, and it was really cool for me to see that come in and make 2 very large, impactful, simple notes, but very largely impactful. I would say that he was the finisher in that. I pretended to be the finisher to a degree, and that dude came in and said, now it's done because you did this. And
he's the decision maker. He's the final decision maker, the president of the label. Yeah.
But it's not always the case, right? It's not always. So along the route towards conception to completion, the hands may change in the decision making, but at some point, the mixer has it or the producer has it. And that's the responsibility you're talking about, when to know that it is now your responsibility to say, this is it, right? And I think that's really important because the hands do change. It's like a baton race, right? This is a team, but someone is going to be the finisher at one point. So I love that. That's my favorite role. My favorite role is to be like, no, I think this is good. This is sick. Like, y'all did crazy shit and you're so in your head about it. And that's why I always we talk about this, I always turn the weird shit up because I'm like, that you were insecure about, but that's what makes this unique and not like everything else. And that's a leadership position. That's a finisher position. Finding those elements that make it just left of that middle of the road thing, but enough middle where it can transcend. And, you know, this is where my brain goes all the time. It's like, how do I finish this?
There's one thing you were talking about there, which is an interesting topic that there's a lot of nuance to it, but figuring out when you're someone who's getting hired by lots of different people in different teams and different kinds of projects, and again, whether you're a songwriter running around or producer, mixer, mastering engineer, perhaps less so, but it's important to try and understand, but also not like immediately live in the decision, but try to understand who is making the real decisions in the process. Sometimes it's very much the artist, sometimes it's the label, sometimes it's the manager, sometimes it's the producer, and sometimes it's a combination, and sometimes it changes throughout the process. Not trying to figure it out and then stick to it, because that can be dangerous. You're like, oh, I figured, like, the artist is obviously in charge, and then all of a sudden the label comes in and goes, it needs to be like this, and then you're like, oh shit, I should have been sending stuff in this combination. You know, figuring that out and being flexible is a really important part of the process that it's hard to talk about because there aren't really strategies. It's just something to be mindful of when you go through this. Even if it's indie bands, like who in the band, even if it's the quiet one, are they the one that ultimately is making the decisions? And again, not that means you should cater less to the other people, because it's very important for everybody to feel engaged in the process, but being perceptive about that and seeking that out is really, really important, and can get you into trouble if you don't. You don't understand who are the ones that you really need to be listening to, because sometimes you'll get notes from 5 different people, and that's a whole nother conversation, how you organize notes and when you get managers to do what. But the figuring out who the decision makers are and making sure people feel listened to is super important. Really just gets back to communication.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. We don't have sponsors. We don't run ads. We don't have a Patreon. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks.